Welcome back, everyone. It's time for another fantastic day for our Osu Mania Long No Tournament showcase of our semifinals. So today, I, Imperial, will be commentating alongside our wonderful host, Polly. Any words?
Yes, hello everyone. It is like Polytetro, and yeah, we'll be back with the semi-final showcase for the Osmania Long Tournament 4. And honestly, I do not know how to feel right now because I felt like time has been going so fast, right? And like we're all the way here already in semi-finals with only like the top 12 out of what was like 240 participants or 240 people who sign up. So like it's been a long way, but apparently I just didn't know it, and we're here. So you want to get right into the map pool now?
Yeah. So yeah, without further ado, we'll move on to our map pool. So once again, we're gonna showcase starting from our coordination picks. So we have another Danny PX coordination 1. I'm a Totetsu Bonbon. So there's a Cola song. Some people are familiar with this artist. But as you can see, we are ramping up the difficulty quite a bit. And just a bit of a technical difficulty. There we go. And
Yeah, I think you shouldn't get fooled by the star rating. 4.53 star rating, but I can tell you that I think just given the trend of CO1 picks so far, I really do not think you should really look at the star rating and determine how hard or easy something is.
yeah, so just a little bit about this map. I think from testing and as well as looking at the map, Danny PX is a way of emphasizing particular sounds to a particular LN length or pattern, and the way it repeats throughout like different columns is very apparent. So you get kind of like this like repeat sections on these like flam sort of release sections that is pretty difficult to act. Might not necessarily be that physical to play, but I think players need to actually concentrate and lock in quite a lot just in you're able to play some of these patterns. And it's definitely
Yeah.
a step up in last week's, which is already fairly difficult.
Yeah, I think what I observed, at least the main difference between this CO1 pick and the CO1 pick from last week, which was the Madoka song. Basically, I think there's a lot more complex patterning going on in this one. At least in terms of physicality, it's not really just pure release entertainment. There's a little bit of some kind of rise that you actually need to navigate along the way. I think it's a little bit more technical in a sense, but it is still very release oriented, don't get me wrong. I can definitely tell how tricky this is compared to something that's a little bit more release oriented or more accuracy oriented in the previous round.
Yep. Fairly short in length, so only 2.5 minutes. But, you know, the shorter the song, it means that each judgment that is not, 300 or 320 is ever so more detrimental to your overall score. So players need to be careful when they accidentally drop 200s. So yeah, that will be our first coordination pick. Definitely, I think players have been CO1 has been like the ban or protect map, kind of like an SV map in a normal tournament. So it's actually kind of interesting to see high presence of this map being picked throughout each stage.
Yeah, I don't know if the trend is gonna stay, especially with how physical things are a little like getting, at least in this CO1 pick compared to the previous one. But I think given the proficiency of our top 12 players, I think there's potential for this to be basically in the same way that it has been the past few rounds, I guess, in terms of CO1, just being a ban or protect, something that like allows you to shine or not, you know.
Yeah, especially if the players have like well, I don't think any of the players have a physicality that much of a physicality issue looking at the
Yeah.
list of remaining players, but it is interesting to see that sort of divergence between physicality and accuracy. But without further ado, we will move on to our second coordination pick, and that will be a map by by Castella.
Yeah,
Sorry,
Castella.
I Koroba 4, featuring Hatsune Miku, the Deco 27 map, and this one, in contrast to our last one, is going to be pretty fast. 278 BPM, which roughly translates to 134 BPM jacks. Or sorry,
it's more of like
139.
Yeah, we're doing math
I can't
in
math
like
right now.
7 a.m.
Yeah, I cannot math. It's 9 in the morning. Anyways, but this is a lot more physical. There are presence of shields, but also like these like more rolly trill patterns between these shield sections. It is, I would say a pretty traditional coordination pick, but you do have like some of these more abrasive patternings with these flam releases that are just that much more difficult in terms of like the release aspect, as well as just keeping your nerves to navigate through the variety of snaps in this map.
Yeah. I think while I was looking through this map, I did have a little bit of time to actually look through this map while it's still in its mapping phase. A lot of the flams actually come mostly in the main sections, like the chorus sections, especially with all the emphasis being placed on the vocals. At least that's what I remember out of it. It's a little bit tricky in the sense that it's not, well, just purely jacks or chords in the entire map, but there's a little bit of flam, and some of them, they are a little bit different in terms of snapping. If I'm not wrong, some of them actually hit like maybe 112 aside from 1.8. So actually that's something that you have to pay attention to, especially when you're playing through this entire map, and just like try not to overhit, hit too fast or hit too slow. It's a bit technical.
Yeah, but I would say this map kind of has like the ebb and flow in terms of difficulty. So between your course sections or the main Ki sections, the map is not as difficult, but then when the Ki drops, it does ramp up a little bit, which makes it, you know, you have to have that concentration on like when you can maybe loosen up a little bit so you're not over tensing, or at least mentally like concentrating, and that definitely is not as, it's kind of different compared to like a shorter map where it's just full intensity where you can kind of just fully lock in. And also, just to add on, this is one of our longer picks, clocking in at 3.5 minutes, or just a little bit over that. So length definitely will have a play, as well as the potential to choke at any any point on this map. So maybe that, I mean, probably the biggest separator between this and the first coordination pick between players is whether they can, you know, comfortably play the entire duration of that, as well as the slight physicality increase. So
Yeah, if I'm not wrong, our previous like so-called timing hell-ish kind of pick was like at about, I think maybe 130. So actually going up to close to 140 is a little bit of a step up compared to the previous round. Yeah, a little bit of physicality boost.
Definitely. Okay, and that is our second coordination pick. So then we have our third coordination pick, and that is going to be Snake Eyes by Anthem. 1.05 map by our favorite streamer slash referee, Epsilon, was actually streaming this right now. But this is going to be at 150 BPM. And contrasting this one to the last one, I will say the patterns are a little bit less challenging to hit. They're more normally snapped, but there's a little bit of vocal emphasis as well, vocal dumping on top as your shields. That is prevalent throughout the entire map, as well as clocking in at a long 4 minutes. I think this is, I might be mistaken, but I think this is the longest map of the entire pool, minus the tiebreaker, of course.
Yeah, if I am not wrong, yes, this is one of the longest picks, at least from what I remember. Well, from what I observed in the previous rounds, I think CO3 is CO3 for this one is actually relatively interesting in the sense that it's a little bit more like shield focused, but it's not really shield focused in the way that other picks, like for example, like ACIL from previous round, is like, at least in terms of how these shields play into the difficulty of the map itself. I would like to say that maybe the shields are a little bit more related to hand balance, in the sense that you will actually have to hold something while you're still hitting the shields. So it is a little bit more release oriented compared to maybe other picks that were more physical in nature. And also, I guess with the 4 minute, almost 4 minute duration of the map itself, I think it is definitely a little bit more of how you read this and really just try to keep your cool while playing all the releases that come along with it. And obviously there's a bunch of vocal dumps as well. I think those are a little bit more mixed sections, but I think they don't really take away from the fact that the release in this map is relatively tricky.
Yeah, the solo right now that you see is by far the hardest section of the map, just because of the emphasis on the guitar, right, as well as the constant of the constant of the drums and the other instruments in the background. So, you know, trying to keep focus here, and then after this guitar solo, you kind of go back to the beginning of the map again, where it's just a little bit more calm in terms of the map itself. But the map actually never lets up. There is no actual break throughout the entire map, so you need to control your stamina as well as your concentration throughout this entire map. So it is, again, the longest pick by far. And also, shout out to song diversity, I guess. We have metal in our long note tournament now for our music choice.
Hooray!
So it is
Hooray for
actually
song
like very
diversity.
nice, yeah.
I mean, metal is great, guys. Metal is great. You guys should listen to more metal. Also, do note that a lot of our picks right now are actually standing at OD8. So, generally, the timing window for releases are a lot more challenging. We may, in order to kind of increase the difficulty of future coordination picks, we do have a little bit of a trend where we increase the OD to be a little bit higher than what is expected of usually played LN maps in very common tournament scenarios. So yeah, I think it's just something that you will have to really look forward to in the future rounds if you ever do get to them.
Yeah, definitely. But you know, you guys are all familiar with OD8 plus LNs from a from a certain pack of songs, so to speak. I shall not name it here. But without further ado, that is our last and final coordination pick. And we shall be moving on to our technical pool now. And our first one is going to be 19ZZ, mapped by me.
Yourself,
For,
yep.
yes, from a previous funny tournament, ASC or Asia Suji Cup. And you guys might know why this is technical, as I would say this is not physical at all, but it has anchors and control elements throughout the entire map, and that is the main focus. Is controlling your fingers while holding down the other finger for the majority of the map.
Yeah, I think I think you're kind of a fan of this kind of burst and really I wouldn't say edgy kind of handling, but it's just like really like it just lets loose at the right time and it really catches some people off guard. As you can see, our replier has a little bit of mishap, at least in terms of 200 counts, and there's just a lot of buzz going on this map. It's just very happening. It's volatile. Those one-hand trails are just absolute diabolical things to put in this map, in my opinion.
Yeah. So, actually, there's a slight evolution of this map. If I remember my mapping process, the first part that you saw was all on anchor control. This middle section introduces shields and these mini jacks. And then this third section here, you'll see sort of half inverse density between bursts. So then on the final section that we'll get to actually combines all three elements. So you have a little bit of an evolution of different elements of an LN map combined together.
Yeah, I would tend to think that they build up pretty nicely, at least into this map. Like it introduces one, then the next, and like it just becomes more like an incremental form of difficulty. That at first maybe the map just starts off pretty normally, maybe a few bursts here and there, but it just kind of gets intense, as you can see. Like it's really picking up in terms of the LN density, and towards the end, I think some players may tend to maybe some of them will actually lose their cool while playing this.
Yeah. Also, we're using the non-edit version because Leon didn't like a certain pattern. Blame him. So I had to make the edit version. So now we're not doing that and using the original one.
So is this like some personal thing against Leon now?
No, because I think it's slightly harder, but in a fair way. And Leon just doesn't like anchors. Okay, so that's just him. He has
Well, he's
skill
looking.
issue.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yes. But that is it for our first technical pick. And now moving on to our second technical pick, we have a very interesting map. We have Tara Kimi no Mamade, which is mapped by 3 people actually. We have a 3-way collab between Saimitsu, Felix Spade, and Epic Man 2 on this. Well, the star rating says 7 stars, but I think it's actually 6.8 or 6.7 on the live servers. But this is going to be our flowy, vocal focused technical pick, and you guys will see. You're gonna see how this map pans out. We do have a lot of these more flowy, bursty patterns tied to the vocals, as well as the intensity of the song. You also see how the different mappers sort of interpret the song in their own unique way.
Yeah, it seems like this pick is also, I think, one of the faster picks as well. I guess clocking in at the BPM of 220. I think some of these bursts can tend to get a little bit overwhelming. At least, thankfully, most of them are flowy, so you're not gonna get some random spike in terms of how much each finger is playing. It's not really getting into that much of a stress test. But I think it's still mostly a reading test.
Yeah, for sure. And again, because of the nature of the technical pool, this is again at OD8, similar to our last week's technical. Although we're kind of swapping a little of the numbers around because let's just say we're not being completely diligent. But last week was technical 1 on Not to Notice, which was the flowy technical pick, and now it's TE2. But that was also OD8, and now we also have OD8 here. So just a little bit more accuracy demanding from the players, so that, you know, these patterns are kind of manipulable, so to speak. But at OD8, you have to be more controlled in your playing in order to reach that critical accuracy that you might need to beat your opponent. So
yeah, let's just say, I guess for usual players, I think it's just like pretty enjoyable. But for tournament players, I think it's gonna really take a little bit of your mental stamina. It takes a bit more endurance, takes a bit more discipline to actually play well. And yeah, because some of these like releases are actually really short. Like some of those were probably like 1.6 or something.
Not 1.6, but they are pretty short. I think the shortest might be 1.4, but it's at 220 BPM, so it's hard to judge. But they are pretty short, especially in those rolls and those bursts, for sure.
Yeah, I think in general, I feel like our pools have been a little bit more liberal, at least in terms of category or subcategory selection. So I think it's kind of interesting to just see how everything complement against each other rather than really strictly looking at the map code itself. Like, for example, T2. What does T2 mean? I will be honest, I feel like it keeps changing. But I think that's just in spirit of our tournament.
True. But you know what's not changing? TE3. And some people are very familiar with this specific map. It's a funny one. It's Beast Vorso Remix. Mapped by your favorite mLN mapper, Mr. Chrysarline. And this is
to join us today, sorry.
This is the hardest technical pick, I would say. Oh, I wouldn't say the hardest. It's the most volatile technical pick out of the 3, I believe. And this was also used in ASC. But this map is what we refer to as Chrysarline technical, and that is just him putting funny patterns throughout the map, as well as the prevalent uses of abrasive shields that, you know, very easy for players to slip up or catch off guard, as well as like the unforgiving nature of some of these release patterning that is not easy to act if you're just trying to go for like a combo game. Very easy to slip up as well. Yeah,
I think Chrysarline patterns tend to be pretty abrasive. as you have really mentioned, I think a lot of these roles are just really like I don't know, they just kind of get patterned in a way that just feels a little bit I wouldn't say choppy, but just kind of tricky to hit overall. I think it's in his nature mostly. In his mapping, which has made him such a prolific mapper at least to this day. And you can see some of those rolls and shields are just pretty damn harsh.
Also, this part sucks, by the way. If anyone has played it, this LN, like, single increasing length release is so easy to just chain 200s. Because the sound is relatively the same, but the notes get longer, and it is... You just have to time it correctly. But yeah, I would say... If people are familiar with one of his more famous maps, it's sort of like an easier version of Nelv combined with another map. A little bit more rolls, but like that abrasive mini jack shield nature is very similar to that. But in a less dense way, but it's still challenging nonetheless.
Yeah, I think this definitely gives a little bit more breaks than some of those maps that you have mentioned earlier on. And but I don't think it really discounts away from the fact that some of this patterning is just really difficult to hit. They may be rolling in some way, but also it just kind of cuts off in between. It's not as flowy. And I think it really takes a little bit of a reading challenge.
It's not smooth for the flow. It's kind of what I refer to as anti-flow, where it's flowing, but it's not at all. But this ending section is not too bad. But that is it for our last technical pick, TE3. And we shall move on to our first wildcard pick. And that is going to be... you guys also might know this map. It's Heat Abnormal, but with two twists. One of them being the full length of the song, and then the second one being the OD is now increased to OD 7.7. Yes. And this is going to be your long wildcard concentration test. And so I mapped this a while ago, actually.
Yeah, wasn't it back in like what, 4G MWC?
Well, actually, it was the December of 2023, so it's been like almost 2 years. So yeah.
Yeah, I believe the edited version and the cut version was used for 4-digit Million World Cup. Yes. I think it just doesn't really cut away from the fact that it's a very I wouldn't know how to describe it. I guess vocal dumpy in a way, but also kind of comfortable in the sense that you can kind of like cheese some of these releases together.
Yes, it's very flowy, and there isn't any really surprise patterning. It's just some of the parts get a little bit fast, but that's the difficulty part.
So I think we might have been lying on the length of the songs being the Snake Eyes being the longest, because this is actually at closer to 4 minutes, you know.
It's only by 5 seconds. It's the same. I'm rounding up.
No, they're not the same. They're not the same. You know, within that 5 seconds, like you could miss like once or twice. You know, it's 5 seconds of train time. But anyway, I was just saying.
Yeah, and I will say this map is I would say pretty hard to act, just because of the nature of the snap, especially when we increase the OD, because we've noticed that at OD 7 it's actually not too hard to kind of, like what Polly says, kind of cheese some of the patterning. But now with OD 7.7, you have to be just that more, you know, diligent on your accuracy. As well as moving on to this back half, where we do have more slightly unconventional rhythms, I would say. There is like two melodies going on at the same time. That makes it a little bit difficult. It's not just a straightforward jump stream here.
Yeah, a little bit of a polyrhythm in my chart. Yeah, I sure do love polyrhythms in my chart.
Yeah. So with this, you do have this break though. Well, pseudo break. It's break in terms of your physicality, right? Just don't drop on the vocal expression here. So
And then I think we go back into the main section of this map again in a bit.
yes.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a consistency challenge to be had here with how long the chart is and just generally the difficulty being that you have to really try and hit these releases properly. Otherwise, you might get punished for hitting too early, too late, or just whatsoever. And since the notes come in a large bunch together, since it's like getting higher in terms of density, I think it's just much easier to rush like an entire section altogether. It's just that much harsher, especially in that section you saw earlier.
Yeah, for sure. But we do break 7,000 combo on this map. So
I think we've broken that a long time ago, like on our tiebreakers. Like we have hit.
yeah, true. No,
5
this is a
digits.
normal pick, but yeah.
Okay, fine. Okay.
True. But yeah, that is it for our first wild card. And then moving on to our second wild card, we have has arrived.
But who arrived?
1.05 OD8 mapped by Highloddle, who was, I believe, in or was in chat. Arknight's song. And this map is very interesting in terms of its structure. So you have several calm sections, and in the intense sections, you have these fast bursts as well as shields that kind of just hit you like a storm. I'm not gonna lie. Some of them are really, really fast, and I would say it's really easy to slip up if you're not ready for them.
Yeah, as you can see, some of these bursts that are just getting shown on our screen right now. It's just really brutal. Like if you're sight reading this, I don't recommend sight reading this. If you sight read this, you might get caught off guard in some way. Maybe with a CB rush or like a combo break or like a 200 rush. I don't think you can be adequately prepared for some of these shields and how fast they are genuinely.
Yeah, this is probably the fastest pick we have, I believe. Just thinking, well, you know, disregarding tiebreaker because that's on its own in a league of its own. But I would say this is pretty flowy in terms of how it plays. Most of the patterns are pretty comfortable, so to speak, and autopilotable. It's just that it's really fast, so you just need a little bit of that hand speed or reading speed, so to speak, as well to be able to hit these bursts. But we do have this middle calm section, so this is pretty straightforward, but this is just so you can prepare for the last drop where you have a few more bursts to contend with. And also I believe one of them is like the fastest or the most dense, and that one is the one that a lot of people keep missing on because it is very difficult, I would say.
We should have to look forward to that. I think there's a couple of like really interesting running men or like trilly patterns on one hand. I think those can tend to be a little bit tricky even for players at this caliber. I mean, given how tight those releases are and how we are at noticeably OD8, so that makes releasing all of these even harder in a sense. It's pretty harsh. Like this map is pretty harsh. I think we're definitely gonna see a couple of breaks here and there on this map overall. And I think that's it for has arrived. I guess it's the storm that has arrived, maybe.
Yeah, we have right in the semifinals, guys, and it's not gonna get any easier. Let's put it that way.
I want to say maybe it's still a little bit easy, but it's okay. We shall see.
Yeah, I would say the jump between the biggest jump definitely was like round of 16 to quarters for some picks, and then it will be from semifinals to finals is a really big jump. But it's going to be the best, like, 6 or 8 players left there. So that's, it's understandable at that point. But
Yeah,
without
absolutely.
further ado, we are moving on to our third wild card pick. And that is going to be Crimsonate Black EY featuring Riza Yuzuki. So we have another Riza Yuzuki song, and this is mapped again by Castella at our 1.1 rate. And I would say this is your shield core, so to speak. Kind of like your MWC wildcard LN3 sort of map, for some comparison. I would say this is very comfortable in terms of the patterning. Just a little bit fast on the jack speed, 164. But I don't think there's many long jack anchors on this map specifically. And this is just your more or less fairly straightforward shield jacky LN pick.
Yeah, I can definitely see with the trend of having this kind of LN3, like NOC LN3 kind of picks going on. I think players tend to be a little bit more comfortable, especially I think if they have conquered that form of physicality, which I believe our top 12 players will definitely have that physicality to overcome all of these different jack patterns in. And I guess if they read correctly, it is what it is.
Yeah, so this is like pretty much a high consistency pick. The song doesn't, the map and the song doesn't really go too far away from what you see and what you hear, and so players can pretty much lock in or kind of autopilot through a lot of these sections, right? They just have to enter in that flow state, and then they can just go at it. Because it is, it is pretty straightforward after all.
I mean, there's so much you can do with this kind of BPM. Adding bursts will make it something completely different. As you can see, some of these bursts are actually like pretty rolly. They don't happen that often, so like it's just kind of there. And then like there's some potential to screw up, but I still feel like in the end, I think a lot of it still boils down to just being in the zone, getting the accuracy that you want, and hopefully being able to outscore your opponent in terms of accuracy. There's still a lot of accuracy battles going on, so I imagine this might be a trend for this pick as well. I don't know. I think it depends on what opponent you're facing, but for I mean, if you know that your opponent is of similar physicality, I think this is something that you don't want to play when you're in the end game.
I will say, for the players, well, at least the players that are remaining, the main difference between quarterfinals and semifinals for them probably would be that the maps are just a little bit more easy to choke. Whether their accuracies will, change by that much, we'll see. But the chokeability on some of these maps definitely has ramped up. So it might not be as much like FC battles. Yeah, it will be like who doesn't miss and still maintaining like relatively decent accuracy.
Yeah, I guess it could be.
But yeah, so we have our fourth wildcard. So our final wildcard coming up, and that is going to be, this is an interesting one. Beauty and Violence, mapped by Mistiv. Some people might know this LN mapper. And this map is very funny, so to speak.
And what makes you think it's funny?
It's funny because there's inverse chord jack. That's why it's funny. So, we haven't seen a lot of this kind of patterning being used, at least up until now. And I will say it's a pretty interesting skill set. I know some people who are just like really good on inverse chord jacks, and some people just cannot, like, for the life of them, hit them. But this map has inverse chord jacks as well as jump streams that sort of break the flow of it. into some nasty bursts between these sections. So that is the main theme of this map. It's like the last one, but instead of shields, it's core jacks on top of these jump streams between these patterns. Yes.
Oh, those bursts are a little bit nasty, but yeah, the main theme of wildcard for, or at least one of our wildcard picks in future editions of the pool, is that we have this, well, not necessarily like super dense, but pretty high physicality, high BPM kind of hands and jump stream kind of related pick in wildcard. And I think this is a little bit different from at least what we have seen in the other wildcard picks, kind of completing the four-way contention for the flow, the physicality, just bursty and tricky stuff overall. Is just the thing that completes it, at least from what I feel it does. Some of these bursts are just crazy, dude. But yeah, a little bit of a physical challenge.
Yeah, I think like players can definitely lock in on some of these sections. They play like what you expect them to be. It's just that some of these bursts get a little bit fast, but all these top 8, top 12, or is it top 16 players? I don't know how many players are left. They're pretty good at the games, I think. So I think this will be an interesting challenge for them, because I think they definitely have more than enough physicality than for this map, but it's just how well they can lock in for this 3.5-minute map and keep focused without, missing and full comboing it. So
yeah, just to point out that our BPM is at 231, so some of these bursts are actually hitting up to 330 BPM 1/4, so like it's just kind of pretty, it gets pretty fast towards the end of the tournament, and I think it's just due par for the course of how intense things will get later on. And you can see that really dense hand stream, jump stream section just kind of close off the map a little bit, and yeah, we have a little bit of an ending which is just kind of chill. Doesn't really do much. Well, at least if you don't suddenly stop playing,
So yeah, this just shy of 7,000 combo. And that is it for our last wildcard pick. So then we have 4 more density picks to go through. So moving on to our first density pick, we do have End Roll Psyche featuring Vikanzo. This is going to be 1.15 map by Begin, and slightly extended from the original use, which was in one of the KMT editions, I believe KMT 2024. I could be mistaken because I have goldfish memory right now.
I don't remember seeing it in KMT 2, so I think you might be right. Yeah.
But yeah, this is our like jump stream, hand stream LN pick, basically.
Yeah, along with a little bit of Psyche, just a little bit of Wood, if you remember.
This is Wood 3, actually.
Yes, Wood 3, more Wood.
Yes. A continuation of the Wood series trademark.
So true. Then we get a little bit of a very anchory hand stream, jump stream section, which is really par for the course in terms of this map. Very classical rolly patterning. Things that aren't really that tricky overall, but I think can really, it just gets intense in the choruses, and it's a very common kind of structure in terms of Korean mapping.
Yes, I would say this map kind of is or reminds me a little bit of those OD0 maps that people love to play, but it's not OD0 anymore, so it is actually not as easy as when you're playing it on those low OD, because it is 7.5, and you do have to kind of have to act this map, especially against the players that they will be facing. So this is no slouch, and it is pretty fast because it is upgraded to now 1.15. I believe it was used in either 1.05 or 1.1 in the original tournament difficulty.
Yeah, it's not so simple now.
Yeah. So moving on, we have DE2, which is going to be, some people might know this map, Dreaming Attraction. But this is not the MWC one. In fact, this is Serenade or Chrysler Lanes, and this was used in a certain tournament a while ago as a qualifier. And now is 1.05 rate. And if you guys remember Luminous Rage, it's like that, but like way harder. Serenade just did something funny, and the map is, how do I put it? It's a little bit like anchory focused, but at the same time, like not really. It's just really hard to navigate through, especially with these like rice anchors that are in this map. Just makes it that much harder to read the patterns.
Yeah, these anchors can get pretty nasty. I think especially in long routes itself. Like, I feel like if you miss one anchor, you kind of tend to miss like everything that goes after it. So it's just pretty harsh, so to speak. It's a little bit of a whether you make it or break it kind of situation. Also, yes, this was used in I think also in a Squid Game from like 2023.
Yes, as the qualifier, I believe.
Yeah, a bit of a history right there.
Yeah, but this one plays differently than the MWC version, which was mapped by Toph Daddy, I believe.
Yeah, Toph.
Also used in, also I believe it was 1.05 rate. Just
yeah,
looks
I
like
think
people
so.
kind of like this BPM range.
I mean, this BPM range is like pretty interesting. It's like the situation where you haven't really fully gone off the I guess the runway, you know, like on the plane. You've barely gone off the runway and you're just about to take off. You just kind of like the adrenaline of being there in that kind of BPM. And it's also a little bit in a range where it's a bit more fast, so you don't really have to think about the releases too much. But I think they still pose a little bit of a challenge, at least in terms of having many anchors in this chart itself. So yeah, it's a bit of things to take in.
Our replayer does not like this map, but he also can't stop playing it. But yes, the nature of Chrysler Lane's maps. I hate it, but I can't stop playing. Anyways, moving on to our third density pick, we have another map that people might know, and it's going to be category Catch Ball. By category, obviously, but mapped by U East 2018, or U Easta now renamed. And this is going to be, how do you put it? Very traditional density pick, I would say. It's just density, the map.
Yeah, with a very classical combination of category and UE style together. It is just what it is. I think it's a very common kind of archetype in MWC density picks as well. I'm not sure what map code that is, LN2?
I don't remember, but something like that. Yeah. I think it's LN2.
Yeah.
It could be LN3 on the later rounds, but I don't know how they discern things, but it's something along those lines. But yes, this is your classic 220 BPM density LN. So, you know, features like, again, hand stream, jump stream, but a little bit more conventionally mapped, so to speak.
Yeah, it's pretty simple jump stream patterning with a lot of 1/4 and generally a little bit more rise oriented because a lot of these releases are 1/4. And as I said earlier, we're barely leaving the runway. It's a kind of BPM where you can't really like fully ignore the releases, but at the same time, you are still it is still a lot better than handling maybe a jump stream at the same pattern at 160 BPM where the releases are non-negligible. So this is a little bit more of a physical test. But if you have the physicality, which the top 12 do, this is another accuracy battle. I can already foresee some people getting 995 or 6 on this. Really, I can tell you I'm a prophet.
I don't think you need to be a prophet to know.
Okay, yeah,
that.
honestly, anyone could be a prophet in this situation.
I can also say I'm a prophet. Someone is going to miss one note in this map in the match.
It's gonna be like one miss and like 0-200s.
Yep. And it's gonna be on the break section too, or a rice note, which will be comical. Don't do that, by the way.
Okay, cookie for you if you predict that right. Maybe.
Yeah. It's okay. I've watched our replayer miss on the break section on certain maps trying to make the replay, and it was actually just on a singular rice note in the break section. So, you know, anything can happen. Let's just hope that we catch it on camera. So.
I think it just happens. Like, you just let loose, and then you're like, oh, wait, that's kind of difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
I know
would
where
say
it happens.
I would say this map is the hardest part is probably just the consistency, song length, combination of those. So it's like the physicality aspect to keep up with, you know, your consistency is probably the hardest part, because towards this back half it just gets a little bit tiring since you've already been playing more or less non-stop for 3 minutes until you hit this like slight break section before the final drop.
Yeah, I can definitely see that happening right here. Especially with how long this song clocks in, 3:49. Again, a pick that's pretty long. It does have its little break sections where you kind of do get a breather, but even then, it's not a full break either. So it's just you're just gonna have to deal with it. You know, rest wherever you get. And that 3+1 section, I don't know how many players are gonna get like off guard because of that one section.
Yeah, but I think most players are pretty comfortable-ish with the 3+1
Yeah,
section.
I mean, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah. So that is it for our third density pick, and we are moving on to our final density pick, DE4, and that's gonna be something very interesting, actually.
Yeah.
It's really funny. It is by far the funniest pick of semifinals, I think. Besides the tiebreaker.
I agree.
Do you guys, some old heads might know this map. It's Tinnitus LN, but with a twist. It's full inverse. It's basically 100% inverse. So this is 208 BPM full inverse. Our first inverse pick of this tournament. And
yeah, I think we're already long due for some of these in the long note tournament, to be honest.
True. So this is the most long note map of all time because it is exactly what you think it is. Some players are so good at inverse, like our mighty replayer here. They can just close their eyes and play this map.
Yeah, Mighty Miner being none other than our replayer Toxic Sand. Yeah, he's pretty good at this. Let's just put it that way. He's pretty good at it. Some players may not be that good at it. Personally, when I used to play FLN maps as like a way of learning density, I was so trash at like pure like full long notes. And I think this one really just hits at home. Like it used to be a practice map.
Yeah, and a little bit notes about this map. This first half is, I would say, pretty how do I put it? Pretty manageable in terms of how the trills and how the inverse sort of flows. It's very consistent, very readable, and then this back half kind of turns the knob to 11. It gets really difficult. There are some very long anchors as well as trills that you know, I don't think any of the players here are going to have any like physicality issues, but it is a point where it's easy to miss or even column lock, so to speak. Even though they technically remove that, I think it's still sort of lockable at full inverse maps, at least for a little bit.
Well, I mean, these kind of maps, like as I did say the last edition as well, like if column lock existed, this kind of map would have been an instant ban by most players.
True.
It still kind of tends to be something that's easily bannable just because it is very easy to choke, and when you choke, you tend to miss like a lot of things. The rest of the entire column, the entire chunk of map, and the chunks in this map are very long. Just a brutal pick where you just have to really lock in and finish the entire inverse. Like, it's just one full breath.
Yes. But I will also say that some of these players mentioned in the remaining bracket are also really good at this kind of map. So they might actually enjoy this because this is like the most quote unquote sight readable as well as brain autopilot kind of map. It's just full inverse. There is no gimmick, right? Or that is the gimmick. So some players are just they can just instantly lock in on this sort of map. With a pretty familiar song, because Tinnitus has been mapped several times, maybe in different formats, but it's a very recognizable and a very consistent song. So that will be maybe what players might end up choosing. But yeah,
Maybe.
that is it for our final density pick, as well as our last normal map in our pool. So we have something coming up, right, Polly? And for our tiebreaker. Something interesting.
Before we go into the tiebreaker, I just want to say that I have spent one entire day, okay, not even one entire day, I've spent 4 to 5 days planning and making this tiebreaker because there's just been too much going on in this tournament. But I really hope you guys enjoy it, at least to some extent. What we have for the showcase itself. It's gonna be a bit of a long one. I will just say that first, but I hope you guys like it. Yes.
Polly broke her render. That's why it took 9 years. Anyways, we will now shut up and let you guys watch.
So true.
Why am I here at this hour? It's so misty and dreary here. Whatever. Maybe I'll just check the broth. Who? Who did this?
Had a good taste of your own medicine?
Who are you? You're the one that appeared in my dream. The illusory executioner.
Let's spare the honorifics. I've been keeping my eyes on you since your failed experiment at the Crescent Moon Lounge. Let's just say I know a few secrets too many. Secrets about your little friend and ex-colleague. Secrets about your failed attempt to save Crescent Moon Lounge from collapsing, and about her disappearance. I'm here to tell you that I know where Aria is. In fact, she is with me.
How do you have Aria? Why do you even know her in the first place?
Classified information. But thanks to the way you responded, I can ascertain that you are indeed Leon, the chef behind the food poisoning incident.
Yes, that would be me. But if I had already poisoned someone, I would not be here.
Oh, but you did. Allow me to show Arya to you and we can talk.
I can't believe this is true.
Arya was seen morphing into a Zentari, an alien species that had tried to destroy humanity once on Earth, and even now. Probably because you made her try the meat yourself. She's now in my custody, and if you want her back, let's make a deal. Let's keep things simple. Confess and turn yourself into the police, and I will release your friend. This will save time for you, me, and for the police.
Okay, hear me out. I finally managed to start my life on a new page when I moved to Nuya. I finally devoted myself to a life of making the best noodles possible with the cleanest sources, and now I have mouths to feed, helpers to teach. I know I was wrong, but I've gone so far since then, and I'm not going to let an urban legend ruin all of this. In fact, I'll find a way to bring Arya back without giving in.
Seems like I'll have to force my hand. For every time you deny your involvement, I will rip out a piece of you until you are just a small, empty husk. And when that's done, I'm doing the same to Arya. Take as long as you need to confess. I've got all day. しゃって倒しなければいけない。今絶対に全体は解放したいから。まあこの尋問またできればなりませんね。戻って早く鍵を送る。それはお前を殺す。
Are we on air now?
Hello.
Yes, we are. We are.
We are. And this is our semifinals tiebreaker, iridescent, or of the iridescent judgment. So by Sugo Sugi and a vocal by, again, Ethereal Winter, who did some of our other custom songs. And this is mapped by a collab of some of these famous mappers you guys might know: Cherry Chu, Kori-chan, or Sanae, Muses, and U East. And shout outs to everyone who's involved. So the graphic here on the background we see is by none other than Alex Dunk, the illustrator by Spec, and we have the lovely video done by Transcendium, as well as Polly. So Polly, why don't you talk a little bit more about this?
I don't know what am I supposed to say. We've been talking about that really handsome looking Leon this entire time. I really don't know what to say now. I would say I think this project is a little bit interesting because it's actually one of our bigger graphics projects, at least the ones that you will see in the later half of this tournament, because I think so far most of our original songs have been mostly 3D graphics and a little bit of lore references here and there, but I think this is the point where we try to get a little bit more involved, or at least this was the point of time I started to get a little bit of a, what do you call that, like a genius idea. I think this is the point where I started like thinking to get more illustration and more involvement in terms of projects. So this is really where it gets intense. I think this is one of our most intensive projects, at least so far in the tournament. There are going to be a lot more. I'm really looking forward to showing them to you because some of these are actually pretty explosive. Things that I never thought I'll be able to really show in the Osumania tournament. So really just I hope you guys are liking it so far. If you do, then there'll be more coming to you, so look forward to them. I think that is it on the showcase stuff. I think we do have a audio in illusion that's supposed to start on this map whenever How to Play One gets to it. Usually it starts at 14 UTC, but yeah, it will be refreshed in a bit. We have the details. Okay, we do. So basically, if you're already not keyed into the event that we have, Audio and Illusion, basically you can we'll be having an event where you can earn high scores, where you can earn tickets for setting high scores on our original music, on our original songs that are actually charted. And these tickets will give you a chance to participate in a lucky draw at the end of the tournament, which will, if you are selected as one of 3 winners, you actually do earn a bit of the prize money that we have, which is actually a lot for a tournament right now. We are currently set at 33 USD per winner. up to 3 winners, but the prize pool is definitely set to get larger. So if you're already not already involved in the event itself, you can definitely come in and really try and earn the prize money for yourself. One thing I should say is that because the maps are getting harder and harder, there is a chance that some people are gonna need to use half time. Feel free to do it. We will validate it on our back end. Honestly, I don't mind the participation at all, even if it's half time.
This map is really hard. Sorry to chime in. It is one round, like maybe more than one round harder than the rest of the pool, just so you guys are aware. And if you guys are wondering, how hard will finals be? This is about how hard it will be for the regular pool. So just a little sneak preview of where this tournament is heading. But yes, like Polly said, go play our custom songs. Everyone has spent a lot of effort working on them, so it's just a way to show appreciation for all the hard work that's been done.
Yeah, we want attention. Give us your love and attention. Okay. Anyway, I think that is all for our showcase. And yeah, will we be looking back at the pool or will we just be going back? All right, okay. So yeah, semi-final showcase is basically it. And I would like to say that, well, the pools are definitely gonna get a little bit more intense. And since we're already down to like basically some of the best long note players or some of the best players that we know in this Osomania tournament scene in 2025, I really think that hopefully these pools do give a little bit of a challenge to some of these players to kind of overcome, whether it be like just a consistency or a physical challenge or just something to challenge basically. Yeah, there will be more tough things coming up in the next few pools. They're gonna get pretty intense, more physical, more interesting stuff coming your way. So if you have any last words for us, Imperial?
Leon. Go look at the TBBG. That's Leon, by the way. That's what he looks like in real life. That is the most important thing. Please also hype our custom song, or at least some of them. I think we are planning to rank them at some point in the near or far future. So yeah, I think that is it for us. We will be back again next week for our next showcase. But that is it for us now. So take care, everyone, and have a wonderful Monday. Almost Tuesday, I guess, for some people, but yes.
Yep. Definitely take care. Have a nice day, and I hope you guys are looking forward to the matches that are coming up. They will definitely be more public for sure because we are getting some kind of in-game banner support, which is something that I'm really excited about. But yes, I hope you guys are really excited. I'm looking forward to them. And see ya.